indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you everybody for joining our meeting tonight. I believe I went to the questions and now I lost the agenda. The first piece of business is our budget presentation from Ms. Sedera. Board members, everyone got your books delivered to you yesterday by courier to your homes. So I hope you had a chance to look at them, and also Denise's budget presentation. So Ms. Sedera, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Andrea's going to share. She's going to help me present. So while she's getting that ready, we're going to do the first meeting. This is the first budget presentation of the superintendent's 2021-2022 budget. So on the agenda this evening, because the presentation is a little bit longer tonight, we go through the 2021-2022 budget challenges, the overview of the 21-22 budget, new budget initiatives and changes, revenue, the state aid, tuition, impact aid, estimated tax levy, tax rate, and important budget dates. So on the next slide is just a review for the board members and the public, and just so the public knows that the budget presentation is posted on the website under the business office under budget information. So this is just a review of budget terminology for you to review. So we seem to be starting budget every year a little bit earlier. So back in November, we actually sent out the budget worksheets to the principals and the directors. They gave them back to us in December so that Nicole could go ahead through and get everything loaded up into Envision. We actually asked for two scenarios this year. We asked for a 10% cut in supplies and materials, purchase services, and a 20%. So the budget that we actually worked on, it was the 10% reduction. So we reviewed programs and we developed the budget priorities. The distribution of the budget books went to Excel, as I stated. We request that they submit information back to central office, that like staff changes, you know, if there's travel and conferences that are, which I know is very odd because we're just, you know, next week is going to be 1 year when COVID hit. So things have been a little odd this year. People are still doing conferences. They're just not going. So that has saved the district some money. So once I get all that done in January, I'm working on the salary projections. We worked on benefits. You'll hear the health plan, and I stated that into one of my news and notes that we pretty much had a 0% increase in the rates, so that's been beneficial. You're going to see an increase in health insurance because we have people retiring. We have people that are going on to receiving Medicare reimbursement. So there's always driving forces that are not necessarily seen, which people would normally think, well, if there's no change in staff, then that should be flat. But people are aging, are slowly, gradually hitting that Medicare age. So here we are in March, and we're going to present the budget tonight. We'll have another update next week. And I'm hoping by April 15th that we'll be able to adopt the budget. During the budget process, we strive to be responsible. You know, we want to provide a high quality education to all our students, ultimately preparing them for success in the global marketplace. Sustainability, maintain continuity and quality of programs and facilities. And affordability, we still realize that there's a tax burden in this district due to West Point. 7% of our land is taxable. That's it. So we are very mindful when we develop these budgets. So what has happened with the budget for 21-22 out of Albany? You know, the governor still has not fully restored our foundation aid. The governor is still talking about moving the categorical aids into foundation aid or calling it a service aid. So we don't know what's going to happen with them. And as of today, we still have no idea what he's up to. Property tax cap, I think it's here to last. Assessment changes, they change continually. Just between May and November, they had gone down, so I'll show you some estimates on that. Continued taxpayers' diminished ability to pay an increase in tax burden. Status of impact aid. We are okay right now, but we have to be ready to continue to, as I call it, fight the fight to get what is ours, to make sure that the money doesn't go anywhere. We don't know what the long-term impact of COVID is going to be. They're talking, 4 to 5 years that, they could see the state budget can be affected by this, which is then going to trickle down to the school districts. And the other interesting thing this year, if everybody looked at their books, that the governor put in his executive budget star payment. The star payment's not state aid. The star payment is the reimbursement to the school districts when the taxpayers get that deduct on their tax bills. So we are watching that very carefully. We don't know what's going to happen. We may not know until after April, possibly after our budget's adopted. And that's what's scary. We've had some opportunities. We've had a couple retirements come in. We've had a high school math teacher put in her retirement. We've also had an elementary teacher put in her retirement that will be approved this evening. Again, we look at the tax cap. What's really upsetting for us is that the tax base growth factor, one of the factors that goes in, the lowest number is 1%. The district's at 1%. The allowable growth factor is 1.23%. All this has not changed for the past 6 or 7 years, this tax cap. On the next slide, I just go through and you can see the calculation of how the tax cap is figured out. We start with the previous year tax levy, which was $11.3 million. It takes in consideration the growth factor. It takes consideration the previous year's capital expenditures. And then the district does not have any torts, which is a good thing. And we don't have any pilots as of now. I'm continuously keeping an eye out for that because pilots will affect the tax levy cap. And again, we apply the growth factor of 1.23%. And then we put in the capital expenditures, the net of the aid, for the 21-22 school year. So this year, we come out with a 1.22% tax levy, which is interesting because the growth factor was 1.23%. So we can levy taxes an increase of $137,989. So once I start having those figures, I start looking at the proposed expenditures for 21-22. I want people to remember this is a working budget draft. So currently, as of today, we're at $34,448,586. It's a 3.6% increase from budget from 2021 to 21-22, and that is $1,196,864. Again, the tax levy increase is 1.22%. As of today, I have $500,000 assigned for fund balance. The estimated tax rate increase, I don't want to put a number in, it's unknown because we don't have the assessments. We don't get those numbers until July. Then we look at the revenue. What has happened to the revenue from last year to this year? So the non-property tax revenue has increased $1,058,875,000. I'll show you a breakdown later. There's an increase of property tax. If you look at the previous screen of $137,989, that equals $1,196,864. So if you can see the changes in the revenue to the changes in the budget, I'm going to start right now to say I do have a balanced budget as of today. But like I said, in the next couple of days, something could change. We're not sure. On the next slide, we just show. Historically, we show budget to budget increases. So this is going just from the current 2021 school year for a 10-year average of 3.31%. So for the 2021 school year, it was a 3.63% increase. So that's not what it is for this current school for 21-22 because that's still not known at this time. Those are just estimates. We go through and we break down expenditures by the object code, just so you have an idea from salaries. There's a $240,000 change from 21-22 and 2020-21. You'll see the equipment furniture line. That's the biggest change of $130,000. Dr. Shebor and I have been having conversations that the builds and grounds fleet, we need to start putting a plan into place to upgrading them. And we have budgeted 2 vehicles in there for next year. Tuition, even though the tuition is down by $16,000, it does shift it to the BOCES because we have more kids going to BOCES projected in 21-22 than in 2021. Textbook aid, although we see a decrease here, we still meet our minimum requirement to make sure we get our textbook aid as long as it keeps running as is, because the principals have shifted some of the monies around. Again, BOCES, the costs go up. We have ASL, we have, which is still costly, the Chinese classes, even though we've deducted maybe 1 or 2 classes in each of them. We still owe money. The BOCES admin budget had gone up by 2% for our district. So you see in just the major lines, it's a $700,000 increase from one year to the next. So as I stated previously, that we do have a balanced budget today, that the revenues do equal the expenditures. But that doesn't mean something might not happen after we have a discussion with the board with what they would like to see or something we have missed. And then we'll bring that back next week to the board. So at this time, I'd just like to run through the revenue budget so everybody has an idea of what that looks like from previous years. So the local non-property tax, which is 2.8% of the revenue budget, that consists of tuition, interest earnings, miscellaneous revenue, which is
Can't hear Denise.
We might have lost her.
Yeah, I believe she's frozen.
She's frozen. Let's give her a minute, please.
I didn't think it was that cold in Monticello.
I'll contact her.
Andrea, we lost the presentation too.
I stopped the presentation, so just so I could see what was going on. I couldn't see it while I was presenting. Let me call her. So she's in the process of reconnecting now.
I am so sorry. Sorry about that, I lost connection. So let me talk about the JROTC. As a reminder that we pay 100% of the salaries for the instructors, but we do receive half those salaries, half of their salaries back from the Army. State aid is 31.8% of the revenue budget. That is consisting of our foundation aid, the general aid, is our expense-driven aid, transportation aid, BOCES aid, building aid, private and public excess cost aid. 29.9% of the federal funding, and that is our impact aid, West Point tuition, and Medicaid. Real property taxes makes up 34% of the budget, and assigned fund balance is 1.5% of the revenue budget. So as in previous years, the state aid to education is supposed to assist the districts with the funding of the educational programs, which offer an effective education to all pupils in grades pre-K, which we did not have in the 2021 school year through grades 12. Maintain a state and local partnership in public education. Equalize the school revenues by providing state aid in inverse proportion to each school district's ability to raise local revenues for education. It's a determination of fiscal capacity, which is the income and property wealth. Just so that you know, the combined wealth ratio is for the current school year is 5.562%. That's an actual decrease from 0.62% last year. We encourage the development of model programs to address the needs of school districts, such as community schools and the use of technology in the classroom. Provide support to the districts to help educate all students to higher standards, including students with disabilities and those that require extra time and help. The types of state aid has not changed over the years. It's foundation aid is still in existence. The only thing still that has changed is in the governor's budget is taking the categorical aids and the BOCES aids and moving them to either foundation aid or something new called the services aid, which is very scary because these are expense-driven aids, especially BOCES aid, transportation aid, high cost private excess costs. If we have more kids like special needs students coming into the district and they drive more aid, and if he gets his way, that will get capped. So the district will lose out on money that way. So again, the expense-driven aids is you spend it to get it. BOCES aid, we try to utilize BOCES on purchases because we know that we receive aid on that. Again, it's very scary that we may be losing that if that gets part of the governor's wish of it becoming part of that service aid. So the state aid process, typically the region's proposal, they come out in November. The executive budget, they come out in January. And the final budget, hopefully, we'll have that by April 1st. Then we'll see what happens in that final budget of if there's formula changes to the money that we receive. Hasn't been any of those changes in the past 6 years. And then the projections are based on estimated data that we do when we file the Form AF and ST3 in August, that they're due September 1st. So let's just take a look at the state aid from the executive budget. So you'll notice on the executive budget that the foundation aid is flat again this year. So you'll see where I put in the services aid. These are the aids that make up high tax aid, BOCES aid, textbook, software, library aid, computer hardware. That's we received $3.2 million this year. They're projecting $2.9 million, and there you'll see there's a $295,000 shortage. They're taking money away, and we're not really sure why. They're already capping the money. So we're trying to make sure, my organization, New York State ASBO, they're advocating that this does not happen. You'll see towards the bottom. Oh, let me talk about building aid. I'm sorry. When you look at the executive budget, the building aid does not show $1 million. It shows, I think, about maybe $300,000 or $400,000. That's because the current project that we're finalizing right now, the final cost report is not in. If that gets in by May, like we're expecting it to be in, we will be receiving $1 million. So even though it looks like we might be receiving less money on the executive run, we won't be, because I know that that report will be in. We're going to receive $1 million instead of $400,000. And then the other thing is on the excess cost aid, it's expected to be $600,000, but we know we've had an uptick of special needs students. So I am confident that that number is going to be more like $900,000. And this is why I was able to balance out the budget, because I'm using numbers that are more realistic to what is being giving out from Albany at this point. So on the next slide is just a bar graph, just to show you from 2014-15 forward of how our state aid as a percent of the total revenue. And you can see it's pretty flat. We had a little bit more the current school year that was estimated, because we're still not done with the school year. So like I said, we're on that 31-32%. And which is really sad, because we're not getting anything more, and the district could use some more money, because the district could do a lot more for our students if we had a little bit more of those funds. So one thing with the West Point tuition contract, we have to renegotiate that contract this year. So I had to do estimated numbers, and I pulled out the contract from the last 5 years. And I have been using a 3% increase on the current year that we're receiving. So just on the regular ed budget, I'm projecting $154,509 increase. And then the projected increase is also expected on the special ed. So when you look at the total revenue between special ed and the regular ed, for 2021, it was $6.4 million. And for 21-22 is 6.6 million. So the increase is 156,863. It's just at this point, I don't know the number of the students that are in the special needs, because with everybody coming in and then people going out and not having the tuition contract in place, that's a little bit more difficult this first year. And then we go to Garrison, because we still have students coming from there. I'm projecting 30 students. Right now we have one special ed student that's out of district and one student that's attending the career and tech. So I'm expecting an increase of about $17,194. And I'm using a basis of $18,000 for the non-resident tuition. Again, that's also based because we're not 100% sure we're going to get those 30 students. The classes are going down. So we want to be cautious on that, because we don't want to overestimate our revenues and then really be short. We also received the impact aid. That has not changed since 2009. So as a reminder to the people watching, the 7002 is the land acquisitions after 1938. That's what West Point is. The 7003 districts are the military dependents. Again, 7002, the impact aid, the formula has not changed any. We still receive the I payment, and we get $1.2 million annually. I have to send every year, when I submit the application for the impact aid, I have to submit our revenues to make sure that we are maintaining our maintenance of effort. And again, when I filed for the 21-22 school year, we have met the maintenance of effort again. So we'll be receiving that money this year, because it's always lagged a year on that. So this is just a review for the I payment of how that happens, and the next slide is just the impact aid formula. Again, it hasn't changed any. There's still new districts are coming in. We have to be very cautious. We have to watch within our own group of FLISA, because there's been a change in leadership there, and we got to err on the side of caution at all times, because they'd stab us in the back if they had the chance. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's what would happen. So we have to advocate for our monies at all times. I understand right now with Schumer being the House Speaker, he is a friend of the district. He will be there. I guarantee he would be there to support us. But for the day that he is not there is the day that we really need to start worrying. And then just as a reminder, as we talk about that, we have the our NAFIS conference is on March 15th and 16th. So on this slide, I'd just like to run through and just show you estimated tax levy and tax rates. I have to remember it's estimated because we are only in March. So 2021, the budget was at $33,251,722. And you'll see that we appropriate the $5 million worth of fund balance. You'll see the tax levy for the current school year was $11,305,000. It's estimated $11,443,000. The percent increase in the tax levy for the 2 years. As I stated previously, you'll see there's a decrease in the town of assessed values just from July, August to November and December when I asked this from Jean. So right now, the estimated tax rate's 22.26 per thousand. That will definitely change because as of right now, I'm not sure what's really been going on into the village and the town, but as assessments change, those numbers will change. And just to show everybody the estimated fund balance, when we ended the school year of June 30th, 2020, we had $8.6 million in fund balance. We have a resolution for next week for the board to approve to have the voters to hopefully establish another capital reserve so that we could look forward to putting monies aside to do renovations to the Fort Montgomery Elementary School and any other building in the district. So we have the ability to fund $3 million into that. We're using $500,000 as of today, and that will leave us $5.1 million worth of fund balance, which is about 15%. Legally, we should have only 4%. But because of the issue with impact aid, if that ever disappeared, that's $3 million, and we'd have enough money for a year to come up with a plan of what we would do if we lost impact aid. And that's how important impact aid is. So that's where we stand right now. And again, these are all just estimates because we're still running through the rest of the school year. On the last slide, it's just the important dates. And I'd like to share that right now we definitely do have a budget presentation next Thursday. We do have one scheduled for the 18th, depending on, again, what happens with the board discussions of if they like to see any changes, additions, subtractions to the budget. I'm hoping by April 15th, we can adopt the budget. And that means on the next day, I have to file the property tax report card to SED by law. April 21st is the deadline at 5 p.m. to submit the petitions for the Board of Education candidates. May 5th, the budget will be available to the public at each school. May 6th, we hold the public hearing. On May 10th, I will send out the budget notice, which is mailed to the public, and the annual budget vote is on May 18th. So at this time.
Yeah, Denise, can I just let everyone know, and Mrs. Pitt as well, that the petitions for the school board seats will be available beginning Monday, this upcoming Monday. And if anyone is interested in coming in to pick up, sign for and pick up a petition, they need to contact Marissa Frederick at the district office, and she will make an appointment to meet them to pick up a petition and the associated documentation that goes with it. So those will be available starting Monday, but it's by appointment. So please reach out to Marissa Frederick in the district office if you'd like to make an appointment to come in and pick one up. That's the first thing. Second thing is, go ahead.
No, I just didn't know if anybody had questions, but go ahead.
I did want to ask, is pre-K in this budget?
Yes, pre-K is in this budget. We made sure that we had the teacher staff, we had the teacher aide staff, supplies and materials.
Thank you very much. Gus?
Yes, I have to ask Denise these two questions. Denise, what is the worst case scenario and what is the best case scenario, in your opinion?
With what?
With the budget, with the state, especially.
What is,
You mean on the revenue side?
Yeah.
could you repeat Could you repeat the question?
He asked I got it. He asked what the best case scenario is and the worst case scenario is as it pertains to revenue for next year.
So my only concern,
Thank
and we don't have language. If you looked in your book, there's some information there about the star aid, because it appears that the governor wants to take the star aid away from the districts, and he's making it look like it's state aid, which it isn't. So it appears that he may be trying to allow the taxpayers to get their aid, but not refund the district. So if that's the case, that may be a $600,000 hit, but we don't have an answer on that. And personally, I feel with the scrutiny right now that he's under, some of this stuff may not stick at all. And that will be the best case scenario for us.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, next question, please. I'm not seeing anybody's hands. So do we not have any other questions on this? It's a very detailed presentation, Denise. It's one, I don't remember the last time during the first budget presentation that we were actually tied out with a balanced budget. So I thank you and your team for all your hard work and the administrators and everybody. Go ahead, Andrea.
I think Gabe has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Gabe.
Denise, on page 24, estimated tax levy and rate. So you show a town assessed value, an estimated value, obviously, because that's not going to get locked in until the summer, and that's when the bills go out after that's locked in. You do show the estimated, not actually the actual town assessed value for 2021 on there, 514, 907, 962. And I don't know if you have this available to you. I'm sure it'll be in last year's binder because your presentations are a similar process and they're excellent. And I know I could go find it in my closet, but I was just wondering if you knew what the change was possibly from your estimated 2021, basically the presentation you gave us last year about this time, and then what it'd end up being. And I just wrote that down as a note in my notes. I'm going to go look back in years past just to kind of see what that change is.
Well, I was going to say, if you just give me like 2 seconds, I'm actually going onto the website because my presentations are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually pull up the first one for last year. Oh yeah, I took off 1 year though because it just gets too cumbersome.
Yep.
So 3/5/20. All right, so last year we had 500, it was 513, 919, 278. That's what was estimated a year ago. And it wound up at 514, 903, 962. So it had gone up from when I presented in March until July.
That was a total total town assessed value increased
About $1 million. Yeah, $1 million.
100,000? Oh, $1 million. You're right, $1 million.
$1 million.
Okay.
Yep.
But in the overall percentage-wise, it's not much percentage-wise when you're looking at the total number.
You know, and it's interesting because now I'm looking at this, the numbers that she gave me for the current, when I asked her in November, it's the same thing that I showed last year. So.
But you know what? We're going to lose, like Nicole's was on there last year, and Nicole's, I think, is probably off now. Like some of the big ones are coming off. It could be why she lowered it a bit, right?
Yeah.
But Denise is saying she used the same estimate a year ago. That's 513, 919, 278.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she took
Okay.
$1 million off.
Yeah, and it changes. It changes on a daily basis, really.
Of course.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I noticed that in my business, not my business, but working at the bank, home values have probably gone up higher in the last 18 months than they probably have in some time. So I think that's probably going to have a positive effect on the overall assessment value. You know, that's one positive thing about COVID and the real estate market.
Yeah, that would be good.
Thank you.
Denise, one other thing. That CWR that you were talking about, the combined wealth ratio, and you said that had been a decrease from the previous year, 0.62 last year down to 0.562 this year. Does that, well, what
Right.
would that affect? Anything directly, indirectly, or not much at all?
Well, it's used in some of the formulas of the aid formulas if they're running the aid formulas, but they're not necessarily like the foundation aid formula. They're not running those formulas anymore. But it is a number that they do watch on the districts, because it will if it goes down, we should be able to get a little bit more money. So when when it goes down, it goes up, you know. But again, the formulas are so broken that they haven't done anything in years with them. So you would hope that eventually that, you know, well,
right.
Hopefully something would change and they would be able to fix all that. So that way then the district would be able to get some more funds that they need.
And Gabe, that's a good point that you just brought up, because I want to let the board know in some of the recent meetings that we've been on with the state and the New York State Conference that we recently attended, a lot of the constituents were out there saying that, you know, it's all great and dandy that we're hearing that the federal government's giving the states more money potentially, or that the state is, you know, this and that, when at the end of the day, it's, if they continue to use those old formulas, we're not getting a wooden nickel. So what's happening is, before they even start giving it out, we're trying to get to our constituents and say, please don't give it out the way you gave it out last time. But no one's agreeing to anything quite yet. So we have to keep on fighting and praying for that before they start giving out funds. Because it'll all go to the districts that got it last time. That is not fair. I'll stay non-political, but so I'm trying to look and see, does anyone else, I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. I'm seeing a lot. I'm not seeing faces. I'm seeing a lot of letters. So if anyone has any other questions, Andrea, from the board, can you let me know? I don't see any right now.
Yes, I'll let you know. I don't see any either.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, Denise, administrators, your employees, what another great job on our presentation. Like I said, I'm very happy to see that we already have a balanced budget, but I do know that that could change by next week, or, you know, depending on what happens. So I thank you for all your work, and I look forward to next week's presentation. I think we all do. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So Dr. Sheboy, oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Can I open it up now for any board comments before I turn it over to Dr. Sheboy? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Gabe.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I had sent an email previous just to help maybe try and get answers during the meeting so the public could hear those answers. The lights at the high school, I've been up there in the evenings picking up for cheerleading for my daughter at times, and the lights in the senior, I'll call them senior lot, junior lot. I don't know if that's what they still call them, parking lots, and the staff lot in the back, the new lights are on and very nice and bright. In the visitors lot going up to the circle, there doesn't seem to be much lighting. It seems to maybe either be the older lighting that's either on the building out into the area. Is that not completed yet?
Yes. So Gabe, great question. They're just waiting to energize the west field, and that's part of energizing the front of the building. That'll energize the entire field, the pole barn, everything. So that's one of the last things that Foremost has to do.
Thank you.
And I know there was a concern a couple of times about the lights in the back being on all the time. Those have photo cells. They're not on a timer. So we're trying to work with Foremost to figure out why the photo cells, which should shut them off during daylight and turn them on at dusk automatically. That's why we don't have to worry about daylight savings and things like that. We're trying to work with Foremost to figure out why the photo cells aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Because I was out there again today, and they were out there. They're bright, they're nice, but I don't need them on at noon.
Gabe, I think you had another question as well.
Yeah, so one day I went up, I picked up at the circle and I
There's a
on my way
light.
out. On my
Go
way
ahead, Gabe.
out, I'm driving and I wanted to go see the turf field and see how the snow melt was going on there, which I was just there today, starting to see bigger patches of green. I think maybe by next week we should definitely be on it. But I go through the into the circle and then right out of it through this into the senior lot, which is two-way traffic at that point. At the easternmost end of the senior lot, now I'm making a right toward the staff lot, and I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm slow. There's a snowbank there as well, which doesn't help vision. But that road, there's no traffic to control the flow. There's no signs to control traffic flow there. So theoretically, persons could be coming from the junior lot and going the same direction that I am. And neither of us, there's no stop, there's no yield, no nothing. And it's not great vision in terms of somebody could be coming from the junior lot at a decent speed and somebody coming out. And it's something that you just need to address. I believe just a stop sign maybe at the eastern end of the senior lot would be suffice, because that person now stops. And if they want to go left or right, they can look and see and look for traffic.
Yeah, we have all the signage that was in the project, but we can absolutely buy a stop sign and put it up. We can work, Denise can work with Linda to get it, and our guys can put that in pretty quick. And in regards to the field, I don't think they need to wait till next week. I think they can be on it pretty much now. Both we're gonna call it the wood field and the crow field as opposed to west field and east field now. The wood field had about an inch of snow on it today. You get a couple more warm days and it'll be totally gone. And the crow field, Debbie's on the call, right? You can see green going right through that, and we didn't even shovel that one. If the board didn't see the article in today's hard copy at the Times, there was another district that had, I'll call them good Samaritans or well-intended Samaritans, who decided to engage in a snow removal on the district's brand new field in a local district, ultimately resulting in approximately $500,000 worth of damage to the track and the field. So last week when we gave our report and I said that I spoke to ATURF about what we should do, we have followed ATURF's exact recommendations, just same as we have with Nickerson and the tennis courts. We're being ginger with that so that we don't ruin our assets and void our warranties. And I know it's taken a little longer, but you're never on fields like this in March. So we're actually in pretty good shape, if you ask me.
And that particular district is out of luck right now for the next several months until they can either make costly repairs or hope that they can make costly repairs. There's permanent damage done there. So a little bit of patience is going to go a long way with us being able to use our fields.
Yes.
So.
And there's I don't believe their insurance is going to pay for that either.
Yeah, no. It wouldn't, because, and I think, go ahead, Ned.
The front of
I'm sorry, I
the
couldn't hear you.
front of the intermediate school, the lights are on 24 hours a day. That needs to be corrected. It's been going on for a long period of time. They're like
we'll get together
handle
with
light
the grounds guys and maintenance guys and figure out what's going on with that. It should be
on the front of the building.
Are you talking about, it's like the yellow light, the security light that's on the front of the building on the far door? If you're facing it, is it all the way to the right?
No, I'm talking about door. And it's they're lights that have been with the building for a long period of time.
I think, Frank, those are the safety lights, the security safety lights. But if you guys can look into that and let us know.
They're not the security lights.
We'll look into it.
They shouldn't be on 24 hours a day.
Well, let's see what they find out and come back to us with. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
And my last question, and I don't know if it's going to be discussed when the questions are
Is
about.
it for the one from the parent, Gabe? The
Yep,
parents? Yep, we
yep.
have it on the list. We have it
Okay.
on the list. It's number 6, I think.
Great, thank
We
you.
reviewed them all and you will get the answer. But thank you for bringing it forward. Okay, any other board comments?
Hey, Ann.
Hi, Aaron.
Hey, just a quick question.
Yes.
Might be directed more towards Debbie or Robin. Are we looking to start planning for prom and graduation? I know the new guidance came down that's allowing up to 150 people in a venue for with the protocols and stuff like that. I know a lot of schools are starting to book venues and a lot of venues are opening up with those protocols. So I was just curious if we were looking to start planning.
So you're the board member that was reached out to. I was trying to figure out what board member was reached out to by our PTSD.
I usually am.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that Frank, do you want to take that or?
Well, I can certainly say that, we've been in discussions with West Point about the venue for Ike Hall. I'll be sending another formal request to Colonel Rosell on that. We were penciled in, so I presume that we should be okay on that, presuming, West Point, that everything is safe and that we can do that. It's after West Point graduation, so it shouldn't give us too much difficulty. It is before our day. It's a tight window, but, West Point, Eisenhower Hall have been very good to us in the past, so our hope is that we can do that. If we can't do that, then we have been talking about some contingency plans. In
I
regards,
think Frank, the prom, I think is what he was asking about, the prom.
I was just going to say, in regards to the prom, I'll have to defer to Robin because I don't get intimately involved in the prom, and I hope we can have a socially distanced prom no matter what it is, but I'll defer to Robin and see where we are in that.
We're looking into it. There's nothing definite, but we're researching it to make sure it's something we can do and do safely. As soon as we have plans, we'll certainly let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Sure.
weddings are allowed if you
Frank,
dance with people from your own family, so.
One piece of good news, the Hudson Valley Magazine, I believe the most current one, has O'Neill, our high school, rated, I believe, 12th in the Hudson Valley. Cornwall, I believe, is 19th.
Okay.
So a plus for our staff at the high school.
And all our staff, because they move up through all our schools to get there. So thank you all.
Cecil has a question.
Next, go ahead, Gus.
Yeah.
Was that Gus?
No, Cecil has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Cecil. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to see if Frank had any of his old prom suits laying around from the 70s. That's probably too bad to ask. Hey, the only thing I would tell you is that I was not there today. I was in another meeting, but they did have the first wedding to be set up on West Point, the Thayer Hotel. They're going through that process. I believe it was going to get approved, but don't quote me on it. But that was like 130, 120 people. We are hosting a pretty fairly good sized solarium for the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army here in the next couple of weeks. I tell you this because we're starting to look at our different facilities. Frank is absolutely correct. We have him postmarked there for graduation, and everybody here wants to do whatever activities we've always done in the past. We're kind of test driving that system now if we can do it safely. Frank's absolutely right. The wedding, it's by pods. The Thayer put a pretty intricate plan together, so that'll be our first test drive when that goes. But we're looking at those things to see if it's in the realm of possible. We're also rocking through vaccines here on the base as well. So staff and faculty are about done. The cadets will probably start here in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's all that stuff's coming together, but we're absolutely looking at it for these types of events for O'Neill, but for anything else too, we're looking at it just to give you some background.
Thank you. That's important to hear. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Dr. Sheboy?
So I have a few things. A couple of them are taking a little bit longer, and I'll apologize for that. But this past weekend, a number of us, 7 others plus myself, attended the Lower Hudson Council School Personnel Administrator Association Diversity Teacher Job Fair, and we had the opportunity to meet about 100 candidates in a speed dating format. It was very successful, and there's some good candidates out there, and we're gonna try to chase down some of them. In addition, I attended the Cortland Job Fair yesterday, SUNY Cortland. Again, as part of our DEC efforts, we are trying to cast a broader net than just SUNY New Paltz and Mount St. Mary's, knowing that we want to attract diverse candidates to apply for our positions. We did begin our search for the interim director of facilities, and I anticipate that we'll have an appointment or a recommendation to the board for an appointment next week at this meeting. In addition, yesterday I had the privilege of joining in the NISCUS Federal Liaison update. We had a lobbyist from ASA, which is the Superintendent Association, National Superintendent Association, and they talked about the same things we're dealing with here: funding, E-rate, and things such as that. As Andrea is very much aware of the limitations on E-rate, which is some of our technology-related aid. And I was also able to attend a webinar on indoor air quality, and I was pleased that the mitigation filters that we put in, the Medify airs that are HIPAA grade filters, they're pretty highly rated. So, in addition, I just wanted to share with the board some of our planning for getting more kids back. As the board is aware, we did bring back our IEP 504 and ENL students to all of our buildings on a 4-day beginning this past Monday, except at the fort because we had an exposure, but we're in good shape there now. In addition, next week on Monday, we will be bringing back our K-5 students, all of them, on a 4-day-a-week schedule. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and beginning on the 6th of April, those students will be coming back 5 days a week. It's our goal is to get as many of our kids back as we can. In addition, most of the board and hopefully most of the community, if you've been watching our town halls since July, will remember that we are bound by New York State as well as Orange County Department of Health regulations. And one of the most challenging regulations there has been the 6-foot social distance requirement. Everybody keeps sending me emails that says, well, Doc, it says 6 feet or barriers, but no one will answer the question as to how close you can be with a barrier. I know that there are schools in the other regions that are doing 3 foot and 4 foot with barriers, but since the CDC guidelines came out and said 6 feet, especially in areas where high contagion is happening, we ran our plan, which was something that we collaboratively discussed with all of our stakeholders, the teachers and the administrators and everybody. 4 feet is something we believe we can do with barriers, and we have some polycarbonate barriers, but we're waiting for the Department of Health from Orange County to give us feedback on our proposed plan. If it's approved, then what our intention would be to bring back our 6th through 8th graders in addition to our K through 5 back 5 days a week, starting as soon after spring break. So we're hoping for April 6th on that. The question always then comes up, well, what are you doing for 9 through 12? Well, when we went to 9-12 cohorts, and then we were planning on bringing kids back with all the requirements that we have for sanitizing and cleaning our rooms, we had to adjust the master schedule. We had to build in 8 minutes in between each period in order to accommodate the high intensity need of cleaning the rooms. So for us to bring back kids, we would maintain that master schedule through the remainder of the year, Monday through Thursday, because what we lost, and board members who have high school age children or who've had them in the past know how valuable the expanded day program is for our students. And our goal would be to keep that where it is now, which is on our Wednesdays, in addition to other teacher support and small class meetings and small intervention meetings, but to keep that on our Wednesdays, at least through the, well, not at least, through the end of this year, because we can move back to our regular master schedule in September. Otherwise, we will not be able to conduct the cleaning that we have to do under the Department of Health guidelines if we don't keep that 8 minutes hall passing between. I know there's districts that said, you know what, we're going to use desk barriers. Department of Health said no. We've asked about all those things. So it's not like, you know, we can do those things. But to everybody who is concerned that the district does not want to or is not working hard to try to bring more kids back on a regular basis, I will tell you, we are doing everything that we can to do so. You know, the guidance from the state, the guidance from the CDC, and the guidance from Orange County is still upholding us to that 6 feet social distancing. If they don't bend on that, I can't bring everybody back to the high school. Question keeps coming up. Well, what's the difference between now and when we were in November? How can you bring kids back to the fort? Because we moved classrooms, we moved teachers. In some cases, we actually moved children's schedules to accommodate that. We have, again, to get more kids back, we have disrupted children as well as faculty and staff. And I worry more about the children and the fact that, you know, some of them have had 2 or 3 different teachers this year. But our goal has been and is to bring back our kids safely. And individuals who think that that has not been our goal, I would say are misinformed at best. But
so, Dr. Boy, how many of our students at the Fort School are still choosing to be remote? There's still a number of those as well, right?
Yeah, it's approximately 25%. Andrea, you
25%.
Yeah, because it's about the same in all of our buildings.
Yeah, that's a decent number. That, you know, think about the challenges if all of a sudden everyone decided to come back, you know, full. So I think we've done a phenomenal job with the numbers that we have and with the facilities that we have. But
yeah,
yes, I do think that anyone thinks that we're not working as hard as we can to do what we need to do, or that they're, you know, we haven't thought outside the box. I just asked for them to go back and look through all our reopening plan presentations and watch some of our old board meetings, because that's all we've been talking about.
Yeah, and to the extent that, you know, we're dealing with, you know, guidance from the Department of Health that individuals think that we've created, we didn't, and we are advocating for the changes to those. We've been advocating for changes in contact tracing, even so that we don't take a whole classroom out or a whole cafeteria out or a whole gymnasium out when there's an exposure. But, you know, we're doing our best. We're getting kids back again next Monday. Can't wait to see more faces at both the intermediate school and all faces on Tuesday at the Fort Montgomery Elementary School, and more kids coming into O'Neill. It's great to see kids in the hallways of all of our buildings. So that is the end of my regular report.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Theodore?
Good evening. Thank you. We've started to receive some guidance from state ed regarding Regents exams. Most recently, the guidance is around the exams that we have to give in terms of being in compliance with ESSA. And we have to administer Algebra 1, ELA, Living Environments, and Earth Science. It looks like at this time, the other Regents exams will not be administered in June, and that there won't be any exams at all administered in August. I think we're waiting for confirmation on all of this. There's a lot of information coming out of state ed now as we get closer to the administration schedule. Our plan currently is to move forward with the administration of our 3/8 exams unless we receive guidance otherwise, and you know, or we receive guidance on the ability to administer them in a different way than we have historically. So as that information starts to come out, we'll pull together teams of people to evaluate what our decisions are in terms of exam administration, if we're given any leeway in that regard. Other things that are happening, you know, we've state ed passed, well, we have Ed Law 2D, and we're evaluating our compliance with the NIST framework and we're working on that. And also another requirement that's come out is that the district have a professional learning plan, and I'm working with groups of teachers and administrators to handle both of those. That's all.
That's a lot. Thank you. Ms. Sedera?
Hi, thank you again. I just want people, I reached out to Chris Maley at Nugent Hauser because, believe it or not, we need to start thinking about the audit. And I secured the audit for August 9th. And when we get to the audit committee, we'll talk about when we want to look at having him come and do the entrance interview. Then the last thing I want to speak about is that Nancy Abbott from Precision Pipeline Solutions has reached out to me because their construction team asked if they were able to continue using the parking lot over by the Thickens Field through September. So I told her that I would need to speak with the board before we did anything, so we can update the contract.
When does the contract end?
Right now, March. So looking for an additional 6 months. March 31st, it's ending. So they're looking for an additional 6 months.
Will that interfere with softball over there, or?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, Frank.
It's definitely gonna, from a community perspective, interfere through everything from April-ish through October. Well, it'll because we start getting out there
November.
April or mid-April.
Okay, I can just tell
When
that
the schools
unfortunately
start,
it's not.
and the school, I mean, they're going to do something with softball, I believe, or something like something. So if they do that, that could also, I don't know when that starts, probably April or May, but yeah. So what is your recommendation, Dr. Sheboy? No, yes, maybe, partial?
I'd say partial. I think what we really want to do is work with Ms. Crow and Town Rec and just see, can we? Because if we can't, because it's going to impact our program, then no.
Okay.
Do we receive payment for the use of that parking area?
No, all they're supposed to do is wherever they're parking, they need to grade it out and lay some stone down when they're done. That was the agreement.
Why would we make it available for no payment when we're in a money crunch?
Good neighbors, and we were working with the village and the town because reciprocation and things like that, like we've done with other things. They helped us out a lot with the water leak.
But they're not the village or the town.
But aren't they contractors for a job they're working on there, or am I misunderstanding? Frank? Denise?
I believe that's still correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay. So that's, I remember discussing this a while back, and it was about reciprocating with our community. But obviously, if the fields are going to be used, like Erin said, for recreation and also for school, then, no can do, obviously. So we'll if you guys can look into that with Erin and Mrs. Crow. Yes, thank you. Okay, was there anything else, Denise?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Who won? Mike, Mr. McElduff, would you like to go first?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Thank you. So a couple things happening. This past Wednesday, we had our first of two parent-teacher conferences. We had them in the afternoon and the evening. We got some good feedback from the teachers, great turnout from the parents. So I thank the parents for coming out, and the teachers doing an amazing job as always. HFIS is celebrating Women's History Month each and every day during our morning announcements and as well as in classrooms. So looking forward to some projects that are going to be presented throughout the month. We have officially and successfully moved all classrooms that needed to be moved in order to accommodate the 100 plus students we'll be bringing back in grades 3, 4, 5. So I want to give a big shout out to my third, fourth, and fifth grade team. Specifically, fourth and fifth grade, they had to shift entire classes to different floors. We were able to make it work. So their flexibility, it was amazing, and it's all because they want more kids back. So it was great to see everybody pitch in. The custodial staff did an amazing job moving things out, finding spots to put things that we didn't know. Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Bankus were fantastic as we're using the band in the chorus room, and they gracefully moved their belongings out and relocated. So just an overall team effort and at HFIS. So I'm just very proud of all of that. So that's all the good stuff that's happening there.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I'll go if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you, Rachel.
No problem. So I just want to note today I did share a reopening FMES video on Class Dojo for families with just some reminders of what the day will look like for our students, and arrival, dismissal, lunch, recess, things of that nature. So if you haven't already taken the time to see it, just take, I say a couple of minutes, but in all honesty, it is 11 minutes and 20 seconds. I am sorry, but there's just a lot of information to share. So that's up on Class Dojo. I did also share it in the news and notes for the board as well. Our master schedule is out and done. Revisions have been made, so there's a lot more variety with the specials that we have. So you'll see some great things from your kids moving forward. Our building is clean and ready for our kids on Tuesday. I cannot wait to see them. I've definitely missed them. It's been far too long personally, but then also I know that they do also miss being at the school. Similar to in the intermediate school, our parent-teacher conferences have been going really well. Our second conference is on Wednesday the 10th, and there's still time to sign up. If you need help signing up, you can certainly call the main office, and myself or Jeremy will assist you in making an appointment to meet with your child's teacher, even the day of. So if you forget, don't worry, we can absolutely help you. And then I do have a meeting scheduled with our PTP leadership team on Thursday afternoon to just talk about ways to bring students together virtually, at least to start more of that socialization aspect and more time for the kids to reconnect and just have fun. So Thursday afternoon, we'll be meeting together and sharing ideas.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mrs. Haberman?
Sure. Good evening. It's hard to believe, but we are at the midpoint of the third quarter. It's tomorrow. Grades will be published on Tuesday, March 9th. The winter sports season is now complete. All teams performed well and showed tremendous fortitude in completing a very intense game and practice schedule. Fall sports are now underway in the high school, having begun practices on Monday, March 1st. Several dozen more students came back to school 4 days this week. Classes still operated smoothly, and several students were relieved to be back in the building. So nice to have them. The guidance department, Debbie Brand and myself ran tours for incoming Garrison students and their parents this past Wednesday. Many of the students showed great enthusiasm for O'Neill, and we're particularly excited about seeing all of our new facilities. The underclassmen yearbook photos will take place Tuesday, March 9th. Debbie Crow, Debbie Brand, and Dr. Sheboy met with BCA reps this Thursday to discuss the design of the new gym floor in the Coach Jerry Kaplan Gymnasium. And as Mr. Copewald mentioned earlier, the Hudson Valley magazine recently rated all high schools in the Hudson Valley. They used many different metrics, including student-teacher ratio, college readiness, graduation rates, SAT scores, poverty rates, and more. And O'Neill was rated 12 out of all high schools in the Hudson Valley, and was #1 in all of Orange County. So that's very exciting news.
Thank you, and it's well deserved. Thank you. Ms. Hardinas?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi there.
So just to let you know, we're continuing on doing our new review meetings for our out-of-district placements, as well as starting on March 17th at HFIS. I do miss that all the meetings are Zoom this year, so I'm not going out to any of our programs to see any of our kids directly, but some of them have been joining by Zoom with their parents, so that's been nice to see. I've been meeting with some of our teachers, just looking at schedules and some things that have come up as we bring more students back into the building. We're also talking about what programs we'll be offering for next year. Orange Ulster BOCES has a couple of programs that are really great for our students. They're running a presentation on guardianship next week, which is really great for parents. If you have a child, for our parents who have children with developmental disabilities, they need to acquire guardianship for them by the time they turn 18 so that they can help them to make future decisions. So they're opening that up to the entire community, so our parents will be able to go as well. And we have 4 students who are enrolled in the TASK program, which used to be the GED program, and all 4 of our students are eligible to take the TASK exam. So we're hoping that they'll pass and they'll be able to get their TASK certification. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to our committee reports.
And were you going to go through questions first or no?
Oh, very good question. Very good idea, Frank. I think this is a good time for me to touch on the questions. As promised at the last meeting, I said that I would read all the questions, many of which at this point have been answered by Dr. Sheboy during his opening, as well as some of the administrators. A number of the questions have already been responded to in email, but I am going to read through them quickly to make sure that everybody, as promised, that their questions are heard. So the first one is from Buddy Falco. Other districts, one example being Warwick School District, seem to be using a reopening task force, which includes teachers, principals, Board of Ed leaders, superintendents, as well as parents. Why is that? In this school district, parents are not given the opportunity at all to be part of the conversation and part of the meetings. We submit the questions via email behind a screen and receive answers via a YouTube video. No one is talking with parents, just at parents. Why can't there be either a live Google Meet or Zoom or some location where we wear masks and stay distant to come together and figure out plans and have an open discussion? It feels too overwhelming for you. I'm sorry, if that feels too overwhelming for you, then us parents can vote on 1 to 5 parents to elect to be our voice at these meetings. What if all students opted back to full in-person learning from March through June? Do you have accommodations at this point to be able to physically have the entire student body back in their classrooms? So Dr. Sheboy touched on that, but the first part about the meetings, we're having our meetings as we're allowed to have our meetings right now, or that it's highly suggested to have our meetings. We have enough participants on the board that there is no safe place right now for us to have our meetings, that we could all be 6 feet apart, still be on a video for people to be able to see. Believe me when I tell you, we've spent hours looking at it. We've been in and out of our schools, and there's a lot of requirements that we have to follow with our board meetings. So we have to make sure we stay in compliance with those, and we can't do it right now in any of the buildings that exist. I've talked about this on previous board meetings. As soon as we can, we will meet in person as long as our board is safe. And we have the ability to social distance. We are also waiting to get some questions answered about, can board members still vote if they're remote versus if we have some in-house and some out? We're waiting on direction from our legal counsel and the state governor's office for answers on those. Many of the districts, I know you're saying many of them have live meetings. Okay, our meetings are live. We have this email that we allow questions to be asked right up to the last minute, and we answer them the same way we would answer them if it was in person. And we'll definitely continue to do that. What if all students opted out? K to 5, yes, we can accommodate our students 4 days per week. 6 to 12, we cannot, given the social distancing requirements from the Department of Health and the recommendations of the CDC. The county still remains at a level of high risk with the positivity rate currently at 6.2%. We have submitted a plan which would allow us to reduce social distancing less than 6 feet with polycarbonate barriers, but we have not gotten approval on that plan yet, as Dr. Sheboy stated earlier. If you cannot have all students back now, what plans do you have in place going forward to physically make that happen so we will not be struggling to come up with a plan 2021-2022 school year when most, if not all, will want to return 100% 5 days a week? We are all assuming, now let's just presume that we do get the relief from the 6-foot requirement for social distancing in schools. We will definitely be able to have our students back to school full time in September. And I did miss a part of the first of that when it talks about a reopening committee or a reopening plan committee. We have listened to parents. We've had conversations with parents, administrators, community members. Our administration has really, in my opinion, gone above and beyond and done a lot more than some of our fellow districts. Just because of our size, we can do it. So we have, and there are formal committees in school with the appropriate personnel from our district that need to make these decisions. But that's where we stand with that. We don't ever want to give an opinion that we're talking at parents. We are listening to parents, your emails, your phone calls, everything has been and will continue to be responded to. Have there been thoughts about opening a second building in order to accommodate entire student body back if we have minimal space in current school buildings? It was noted that Warwick reopened an old elementary school site, underwent construction for it to be functional again to accommodate. Why is our district not looking into the old elementary school or Sacred Heart school locations? We have those locations but aren't using them. Start putting out school tax monies towards that, like other schools came up with doing in order to meet distancing guidelines to have all the kids back. Our current Highland Falls Elementary School, it's not a viable option to bring the building back to usage. Voters would have to approve a capital project, and New York State Ed would have to approve it. The work would have to be designed, and then construction would have to be done. The entire building would have to be brought up to new state codes for public schools. It's not as easy as cleaning the building and opening it. Cost estimates for this work range from $10 to $15 million, and the work would take 24 to 30 months after successful referendum. As for using the Sacred Heart School, I do not believe that building is compatible to the requirements required to open up for a public school at this time. Correct, Dr. Sheboy?
That's correct. It does not meet the guidelines for an SED building.
Thank you. How can the district be transparent in where exactly our taxes are going currently for the reopening plans? Were plastic dividers purchased, costs, PPE? I would love to see an itemized expense report to be made to the public to see if the money is going to reopening efforts and not just to inflated salaries. We've talked about this from the very beginning. The district has spent approximately $550,000 on PPE, dividers, thermal scanners, air purifiers, cleaners, cleaning supplies, and and we can go on for that. When the budget is prepared, non-property taxes, state aid, federal funding, real property taxes, and assigned fund balance are pooled together to make up the revenue budget. Once the revenue budget is prepared, the expenditure budget is then prepared. We do not allocate expenses based solely on real property taxes. And I think a lot of answers to that particular question were answered early on in the evening with the detailed budget report that Ms. Sedera gave us, and hopefully you'll continue to watch future meetings this month where we'll get into the breakdown a little more of each of the areas of where our money is spent. But to say that we would give people inflated salaries, all that stuff is approved. So you would see it on the during a meeting if someone was going to get a raise. Most of the raises given in the district for the teachers and the personnel that work here are based on contracts. So you'll see it in the particular budget lines when you take a look at the budget. So no one's giving out inflated raises or anything like that. Sure.
And can I ask a question? The questions that you're asking, in the beginning, you had said that the first question was from, I think you said Buddy Falco. Are these all?
No, they're all from Buddy.
Questions?
And
Are
these were in last week's meeting, but we only focused on the sports ones, the athletic ones.
Right.
So
I just wasn't sure if they were all being asked by the same person or if we just weren't saying.
Nope, I'm going on to a new person. Yep,
Okay.
I'm going on to a new one now, though. So the next set of questions is from Carly Slemler. Again, some of Carly's questions last week were pertaining to athletics, so they were answered, but the new ones are about AP exams. I saw online that the College Board is offering in-person, at-school AP exams as well as computer at-home exams. Will the school district be offering both like other schools in New York? The district is looking at multiple factors, Carlise, in order to determine which administration will be feasible given the social distancing guidelines and the space utilization we currently have in the building and the most advantageous for students in terms of instructional time. Are the students going to get a choice between digital and paper-based in-school AP exams, or will they be forced into one format or another? I think that there are benefits and drawbacks to both. I think it would be appropriate for the students to have the choice depending on if they are in person or are virtual. Students will not have a choice of which type of exam they will take, though teacher input for each class is being considered. Next question, is the school going to consult the parents, students, and teachers about their views on having both offered, or is it solely a JIO high school administration decision? The decision will be made collectively between the guidance department, the faculty in charge of the classes, and the administration. There are many factors to consider, and teachers are speaking to their students as well. Is the AP exam still going to be required for students this year? The answer is yes. As far as the AP exam goes, how is the district and school planning on ensuring that there are not technical difficulties that plagued so many students last year on the digital AP exams? The district will be hosting the exams regardless if they are digital or paper and pencil. And of course, as always, we will work to ensure that any technical difficulties that we had in the past are addressed this year. But again, if something goes wrong during the test and it's not our fault, there's not much we could do about it except for work as quickly as possible to get it fixed. So the next question is a repeat question. It's asked and answered above about if they're forced to take it and what would be the format. What are the reasons that the high school administration may not considering offering both versions? That's answered above. If a student opts for the virtual, answered above. I want to make sure that our kids have the best possible outcome on their AP exams this year. And again, I believe the district does, as it always does, have the best interests of our students in mind when they'll make a decision on the best way for the test to be given. The next one is from Mrs. West. Good evening. I have a couple questions for this evening's board meeting. Knowing the students go back 4 days in March 8th, is there a plan to return 5 days? And what is restricting us from going 5 days a week? Again, Dr. Sheboy already addressed this. I'll read a quick summary. Currently, students in 6 to 12 are in their hybrid cohort. We have plans, presuming the Department of Health approves them, to bring those students back to 4 days. If we get that approval, we would be able to bring our 6-8 students back 5 days. The master schedule was rebuilt at the high school to accommodate the additional need for cleaning and sanitizing all spaces between students. We had to extend hall passing time to 8 minutes, as Dr. Sheboy explained earlier. This meant a loss of expanded day. That, along with small group instruction, was moved into Wednesdays. And Dr. Sheboy, you touched all of that already. The next set of questions is from Mrs. Kristen Dyaroff. Can you explain what has changed between September and March that you can now open school K-5 to 4 days a week? What other space has been found that wasn't able to be utilized in September? Can you tell us about the reopening plan for March 1st and 8th? And parents feel in the dark and uninformed about exactly how we can now fit K2 in the same school before, when we weren't able to do that safely. The plan for return is largely the same as our hybrid plan. All students will enter the building, go through the thermal scanner, and go to their arrival location. We will be using all hallway spaces to ensure social distancing during arrival and dismissal. The school day and schedule will remain consistent. Students will be seated in their desks for all learning. Lunch will be served in classrooms. All specials, except for PE, will take place in the classrooms. Students will have a separate 40-minute recess period outside of lunchtime. Our goal is to go outside as much as Mother Nature will allow. If we are indoors, students will have a variety of activities to do. We did relocate classrooms to other spaces in the K-5 system. We unfortunately even had to change some students' teachers, as Dr. Sheboy explained. Also, as Mrs. Adelstein said, her details of her reopening plan and how school will look next week was put out on Class Dojo, so I'm sure that's in much more depth than we're giving here. We're using every space available for this instruction, and when schools were given guidance on reopening, the focus was on small cohorts of students. So that's the difference between September and today. Correct, Dr. Sheboy?
Absolutely. All the guidance spoke to small cohorts of students to minimize infection. That's why all schools around us went with a hybrid program. It wasn't just Highland Falls schools. And I know there's some confusion on that, but I will again state that we moved classes. We were fortunate that we have fairly small classes this year, but even with that, we had to move classes. And the one question about what if 100% of our kids wanted to come back, to our elementary world, K-5, they don't, and we would have had to work harder to find spaces for them. But we're about 75%, and we're working through that. So,
thank you. And not all parents want their students back full time at this point either. That's very important to say. 25% right now of our parents would like to continue with the remote learning. Okay, we already talked about why the kids aren't coming back 5 days a week. We already touched on Sacred Heart School and the issue of space. We already talked about the next question, though, I do want to touch on. Has the school purchased plexiglass partitions and barriers for each student in the district? If so, how are they being utilized? If they aren't being utilized, where are they? Schools cannot use plexiglass. It would be a violation of fire code. We have purchased polycarbonate barriers, however, and have additional ones on order. In the event that we are given approval to use a social distance less than the 6 feet as currently required, we will use these in classrooms. The Bring Kids Back have been advocating by rallying and writing to our county and state legislatures. Would our Board of Education and Administration join us at a rally, write a letter, sign a petition, and work with us to learn as a team to get our kids back to school? We would like to strongly suggest the board form an interdisciplinary reopening committee consisting of teachers, administrators, parents, board members, students, a school nurse, school custodian, and invite Dr. Gelman, or better yet, a pediatric infectious disease doctor, to make reopening plans and suggestions for safe, full-time reopening for all grades. Other districts have done this, and it seems to have helped them formulate creative solutions to help get their kids back in class 5 full days. We as a district totally, absolutely support these efforts. We have been advocating for relief from some of the requirements that are keeping us from getting more students back more days, namely the 6 feet social distance requirement. Our interdisciplinary reopening team will be meeting soon on this. And please understand, again, as we've said over and over and over again, our goal is to get the students back to school 5 days a week safely, following the rules and regulations set forth by the state, the Department of Health, and the CDC. And I think that many of the participants in the Bring Kids Back initiative and the parents that have gone out, and I've seen several of them at different rallies that they've had, you're hearing the same thing when Colin Schmidt and James Skoufis and the rest of our elected officials are saying that they're working with the state and the county and the CDC to get some of these requirements lifted or at least loosened a bit. So I think that's where the bottleneck is. And also for the funding that we will need to put the initiatives in place. We've done an absolutely phenomenal job with the money that we've gotten to make these things happen. Go ahead, Faith.
I have this as part of my comments for the what I'll say about Oxbow last night, but I just feel like this particular piece is important to say here. We had Regent Frances Wills join Oxbow last night, which was a really amazing presentation that she had done. But really what she spent some time talking about are those kinds of groups that are coming together and having these rallies. And her real advice or thoughts on that is these rallies should be happening at the Department of Health. Not so much with the Department of Education or with local school districts, because there is that pull and tug between what the parents and the communities want to see happen, what SED wants to see happen, what DOH needs to see happen, what CDC needs to see happen, what the unions want to happen. So there's a lot of controversy within all of that. But really what she said is that our issues are all about getting kids back in the school. But the concerns and the roadblocks with that are with the Department of Health and the CDC. So I just want to support that that's coming from a very high level, supporting what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Faith. The next one is questioning now that sports are allowed. Can you comment on other academic clubs, activities, or events? There are many kids who don't participate in sports but would love the social interactions from other activities offered. What is being done for them? Clubs are meeting. I know some of the students that are already participating in the clubs, they're at it full steam. Most of the clubs are still meeting virtually, but we are looking on how we can bring more in-person extracurricular activities and events back into the schools. But many of the clubs are meeting. They're just meeting virtually. Again, Mrs. Dyroff is asking for us to change our meeting platform to allow for public comment and questions in our own voices versus writing in via email. And again, the minute it's safe for us to open up our board meetings, we will absolutely do it. So that's that. Next question is asking, I'm being told that the Highland Falls Intermediate School playground hasn't been cleared of snow and the kids don't go outside to play. Hearing about all the effort being made to clear the sports fields, it seems that the same effort could be made to allow the kids outdoors recess, especially because fresh air is great for these kids during this pandemic. Is it possible to do that this week? Now, please understand, this was last week's question. The intermediate school is definitely eager to get the students back out on the playground, basketball court, and track as soon as possible. And once it's safe to return outdoors, the kids will be the first ones out there ready to go. So the next question is one that Gabe O'Connell got from a parent. I think it's a very important question that we answer in public. So the first one is, the first part of the question is, I had a parent ask me if a student is vaccinated and a situation arises where they were exposed to a positive COVID student or staff member, would the vaccinated student need to quarantine? Not sure if anyone is aware, but some students who work at various locations on post or in certain types of businesses are eligible to receive the vaccine and have received it. We believe that the Pfizer one is authorized from ages 16 and up. So the answer to that question is current guidance from the CDC and supported by the Orange County Department of Health allows for someone who is more than 2 weeks post-vaccine, but within 90 days of their vaccine, to forego the quarantine period. While we have not seen anything in writing yet, I do imagine that as more and more time goes, since the vaccines have been out, this end time will probably be extended, and we can hope, because the 90 days seems a bit ridiculous. Go ahead, Dr. Sheboy.
Yeah, I just want to state, if anybody didn't see the most recent, that also goes for travel too, in addition to exposure to somebody who is COVID positive, that an individual who is fully vaccinated, again, meaning greater than 2 weeks, but less than or up to that 90 days, who travels to what was once a restricted area, meaning any place that's not a contiguous state, domestically would not have to quarantine. So.
Thank you. The next question is from Kat Dagev. Are sitting school board members allowed to sit on the village or town boards? And the answer is yes, they may. According to rulings of the State Attorney General, this does not pose a conflict of interest. The only position that they are not allowed to hold is town supervisor. They can be a village mayor, they just cannot be a town supervisor. Okay. And we had that question. The reason why I know the answer is we went to our attorneys on that not too long ago, just for, I think it was last year or the year before. Dr. Sheboy, that's still the case, correct?
Right.
Yes.
That is correct. Obviously, the board person, certainly. Town supervisor, absolutely not. Mayor, there's not a lot of case law or true rulings on that, but we're still waiting to get more guidance on that. If we need it, we don't need it today.
Go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
Hey, Ann, I'm so glad that question was answered by that inquiring mind in the community. Thank you so much.
Welcome. We have a few additional questions from Mrs. Dyeroff. What specific plan is being put into action for getting 612 back in school 5 days a week? Dr. Sheboy, you already answered that. Oh, I think we answered her questions. They're just all here again. Am I correct?
That is correct. They seem to be repeated.
Okay. The number 7. I'm sorry. These are all. I'm sorry. I don't know. Has the school purchased plexiglass? Number 5, we talked about our interdisciplinary committee. Did I answer all these? I'm sorry. I think I did.
I think the one on social emotional was a new question.
Oh.
Inequity in schools and what schools are doing when kids are doing amount of work or amount of time with teachers and celebrations and things like that, which is not new to COVID, incidentally. That is not a COVID generated thing, but certainly we can work with the principals to address issues of consistency. I wouldn't call it inequity as much as I would call it consistency. And we want to thank the parent who brought that to our attention so that we can work with our faculty and staff to make sure that we are more consistent with those programs.
Okay.
Can you read the question?
Yeah, I'm going to read it because I believe it's number 7, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And who it's from.
First of all, number 6, I have been a mental health advocate for all ages, but this pandemic has truly taken a mental toll on our youth. Can you describe what programs or plans you have implemented to improve on the isolation, depression, and anxiety kids of all ages are feeling in our district? So go ahead, Dr. Sheboy, on that one.
Yeah, I would actually ask the principals and Dr. Tejedor perhaps to just give a a couple sentences on what you're doing SEL wise in each of your buildings. We have reported on that previously for each of the
Yes.
buildings in our reopening, but I think it's important for people. And I see Mr. Mack has his hand up.
Yeah, in HFIS, between 8 and 8:30, or depending if you're eighth grader, it's 8:30 to 9. We have our morning announcements, and then classrooms work on SEL through the Positivity Project, which is a character-based program that we've implemented for, I think this is the 6th year now. So that is something we work on. That's 5 days a week. That's even on Wednesdays as well. So that is one area that we're touching base on. That's each and every day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
And would I ask if the other principals could touch on that, and we can put these out on frequently asked questions so our community will see the answer to this particular question. Is that acceptable, Dr. Sheboy? Is that doable?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can get these out early next week.
Thank you.
So we also, sorry, Ann.
No, go ahead.
So we also do use that morning time similar to HFIS for our community circles, and that community circle is a social emotional learning period. We started that last year, so that's not actually new for the pandemic. It was something that we began implementing last September as a way to build community and connect students with one another, but also build relationships with the teachers that they have. The other thing that we did add this year, and I've spoken quite often about it, is that separate recess period. Previous to this year, recess has been part of a period for lunch. So kids would eat really quickly and then have just a few short minutes to play by the time they got outside. So since they have been inside for the large part of this past year and they haven't had as much time to play with friends, particularly because there are such social distancing requirements and quarantining, and every family is very different and unique. When they come to school, we want them to have an opportunity to play together and reconnect with friends. So we have that built in 40 full minutes of recess where kids are going out there safe. They are washing their hands before and after they go out to play. There's different areas for them to play so that they could make plans with friends to see what they want to do and how they want to play together. That's another period that we've incorporated into the school day. And then early next week, I will be meeting with our school psychologist and Mrs. Hordinas to think through some other things that we could be adding into our school day to make sure that our kids are feeling, they're not feeling that anxiety and that stress and that pressure, or even that fear that we might have to pivot again into a remote setting, and what to do if they do feel those ways.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you want to touch on it, Robin, or if you want me to add it to.
I mean, I could. I know that Faith has a slew of things. I mean, of course, we have our CCT program
Yes.
on Wednesdays for kids. And I mean, we have a whole host of things.
Yes.
I'd be happy to go through it, but I know that Faith is going to.
Yeah,
How
no,
would
that's
you
fine,
prefer
and
that I proceed?
and we'll put it out on frequently asked questions. But again, I touched on this last week with a parent that was accusatory to the board about not keeping the board and administration about not keeping the mental well-being of students in place. And I'm going to say it again. There is not one person on this phone call right now, board members included, that every day does not focus on the social and emotional well-being of our students. And whether it be developing programs for them or getting involved in something, or plain old supporting our district for what they're doing. So again, you know, we seem to be answering a lot of these same questions over and over again. And at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing here, guys. So I don't want anyone to get discouraged by it. We are doing the right thing. So go ahead, Faith.
Well, no, Robin is correct. We did have a wellness committee meeting this week, and really the large focus, or the focus of that meeting, was social and emotional health and the programs that each building is focusing on. So I did have some of that information for my update, but I know that that's a question that the community has, that parents worry about, that they want to know. So I'm even wondering if in one of our upcoming board meetings, perhaps the guidance department and social work department could maybe put together a presentation for the community at one of our board meetings to talk about those programs. Because I can go over them and just talk a little bit about what we talked about, but it's not the same hearing it from me as it is from them, especially when you hear the passion with which they talk about it.
Thank you, Faith. So I don't know how you guys, can you get together and decide how best you want to handle that and bringing it out to the community, whether they do it individually at their schools or whether we do it at a board meeting, at a quick presentation one week, whatever you guys think is the best way to get it out there.
We could definitely put
Okay.
something together for the board, if it pleases the board.
Yes, that'd be great. One message we're hearing from local parents is the inequity between the schools and even the classes within each school is noticeable when it comes to the amount of work kids are getting, amount of time with teachers, and amount of special celebrations like Valentine's Day. Some classes get uninstructed chat time among the kids before class or during lunch, but some don't, and it makes them feel lonely. Some classes were able to bring in Valentines, others were not. To have two children in the same household and one sibling coming home with a bag of Valentines and the other one to have none, can you imagine how that breaks the fragile psyche of a child? It seems like a small thing, but it's a big missed opportunity to lift our kids' spirits. The school leaders need to discuss these things, decide together on a plan of action, and be consistent across the board. That's a comment. I don't think we need to answer it. I think we're doing a great job with it, but it's a comment. So
who was it from, Ann?
Mrs. Dyeroff. I'm still on Mrs. Dyeroff. Another one for Mrs. Dyeroff. So I was told by Dr. Sheboy that Wednesdays are not planned to be in-school learning days because they are using them for social and emotional needs and outreach. I also thought, Dr. Sheboy, you said that it was also being used for small group instruction and extra help when needed.
Yes, and remember that starting on April 6th for K-5, students will be in person.
5 days.
Correct.
That whose parents choose to send them, correct?
Correct. Parents who've chosen in-person instruction.
Thank you. While that's wonderful, I don't see it for my child. If it requires an entire Wednesday out of school, I would expect it to take considerable time for counselors and teachers to do this. So I would expect this to include all children. No one has reached out to me to check on the emotional or social needs of my child. No one, not once. I would think that someone would have considered that I have been very vocal about how virtual learning has affected my child and our family. How are you evaluating and determining who needs social and emotional outreach, and what exactly does that entail? I also didn't hear back from Dr. Theodore or Mrs. Adelstein as indicated from Dr. Sheboy's email above. Very infrequently, I see videos or links on the dojo. And again, these questions will be posted out on frequently asked questions, but these were all addressed. And I personally was copied on some of the emails that responded to parents on outreach. So I do know that Mrs. Adelstein reached out. So I'm not sure where the disconnect here, but I was copied on them. So I'm not sure where the disconnect is, but I'm sure knowing Mrs. Adelstein and Dr. Theodore that you will follow up on this again just to ensure they got your responses. And class dojos are a major way as to how information gets out to the families on many of our grade levels. So, and parents are all aware of it. The next, and I believe it's final. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more question from Mrs. Dyeroff. Dr. Sheboy said K-5 returning on Monday. I think they are coming back Tuesday. He said the 9th, he said he needs time, 8 minutes for cleaning. What exact cleaning is being done? There are no documented cases of fomite transmission of COVID. Where are the cleaning guidelines and plans from? So I know you did say Tuesday that the Fort School kids would be back, but at the intermediate school, they would be back on Monday.
Yeah, that's correct. The only reason they're not back at the fort on Monday is because we had an exposure, which we sent out, I think, 4 or 5 letters on over the past week for that.
Yeah.
But in regards to the cleaning and sanitizing, it's primarily the high school, which is why we need that 8 minutes. Students move from period to period to period to period. It's not like we have them in an elementary room where they sit in the same class with the teachers, and sometimes the special teachers push in. The children actually move. And I had mentioned on numerous town halls how through creative scheduling, the guidance department, Ms. Haberman and Ms. Brand, were able to get all but a few classes where we could have them fallow, if you will, between. But all the guidance specifies that we have one-way hallways. All the guidance specifies that students are socially distanced. And the cleaning protocols are very clear. Any shared item must be cleaned and sanitized between use. That's per New York State Health Department, as well as Orange County. Cleaned and sanitized means that a desk that a child sits at must be cleaned and sanitized before another child can sit at it. That is not something that happens instantly. It does take time, and we've been very vigilant. I would hold up, and I've said this to Dr. Gelman, I would hold up our practices for sanitizing to any school district around. I believe that we are doing our best to keep infection down. And while there may not be documented cases of fomite, or I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a different kind of doctor, so I apologize. I will say I don't want to be the first either. So I'm happy for how hard our buildings and grounds and our custodial crew is working. It takes time. That's why we've had to bring in part-time workers to help us with that cleaning. And I appreciate the question, but you can't have 3 minutes hall passing time during COVID.
No,
You can't.
it won't work. It
No.
won't work. So the next set of questions are from Peg Turp and her husband. I just wanted to explain to Mrs. Turp, we got an email from her slightly before the board meeting asking why we didn't address her questions. As I explained at the last board meeting, we were only focusing on the questions that came in pertaining to athletics because it was not a scheduled meeting about the reopening. Now that we're here, I do believe many of their questions have been addressed tonight. Why can't the BOE meeting be open where parents are able to speak with their own voices? Absolutely. I discussed that at length. A question repeatedly asked of Dr. Sheboy, why aren't students going to be in the building learning on Wednesdays? We already discussed that at length. Questions 3, 4, and 5, what are the benchmarks for returning 4 days a week for 6th to 8th grade, 9th to 12th for increased in-person learning days, and returning K-8 the full days every week, meaning the 5 days a week. Dr. Sheboy has touched on all those tonight. And again, no questions are purposely ignored or not answered. We're doing our best to answer all questions as they come in with the answers that we have to the best of our ability. So I know I can tell the tension by reading some of the tones in these emails that people think that we're hiding stuff or not being transparent. This is one of the most transparent districts that I'm aware of. With all the meetings I've been involved over the years, state meetings, impact aid meetings, OXPA, New York State school boards. When you hear these stories that go on, I'm telling you, we're a very open and transparent board. So I thank everybody for their continued support of the district and our administrators. And we're going to continue to work to get our schools open and most importantly, safe. So thank everybody for all these questions. Going forward, Dr. Sheboy, did you say all these questions will be on our FAQ page?
Well, I mean, we're not going to put the repeated ones as repeated ones, but we will certainly put them all on there. And there are a couple that have student information on them that we're not going to.
We are not going to read. Right.
We're not going to violate student privacy rights in an FAQ.
Yeah. Right. And to be honest with you, I probably overstepped a few times on some of these as I read, but some of them were just coming in. So I read them as they come in. So if I did, I apologize. Okay, let's go on to the next, the policy committee report, please.
So we found out that our rep at at Erie One BOCES isn't at Erie One BOCES anymore, which is why we didn't get anything back. But we've now resubmitted to our new rep, and they should give us a quick turnaround. So
Thank you. Okay, and then Wellness, Health, and Safety Committee.
Yes, so we did have a wellness committee meeting this week that just passed on the 2nd. I attended that as well as many of the members of that board. We did have representation from the intermediate school and the high school. We didn't have anyone from the Fort School, except we did have Aramark present, and of course they do serve all of the buildings. So in some sense, there was some representation. Our intention in that meeting was to look at the wellness policy, as we had started that just before the pandemic shut everything down a year ago. But instead, we sort of pivoted and worked specifically on learning about social emotional health and what's being done for outreach to students. So all of those that were involved in that really talked a lot about what they're doing. Lindsay Berry and Brian Arduino talked about what they're doing in their health classes as well as their PE classes. Mr. Brightfeller, Mrs. Milano, Mrs. Fitzsimmons, who also serves the entire district, talked about programs that they are working on through guidance and social work. There's a lot of talk about the CCT class that was designed for the Wednesdays at the high school level. There is a mental health peer group that was started at the high school that was really driven by student interest. And so that club meets fairly regularly. They talked about mindfulness breaks and different tips and tools that they've been providing both to staff and students on how to address mental health throughout the day. Just trying to look here to make sure I'm not missing anything. There was a lot. It was a lot of good, healthy conversation. Talked about different trainings that have been going on for staff. Mrs. Milano talked about the difficulty in reaching the ninth graders at such a difficult transition age, where the kids are, converging from the 3 different communities and 3 different buildings, and how hard that's been to get them to engage virtually in conversations. They talked about the use of breakout rooms and trying to get them down into the smallest group of students as possible to really sort of get them to open up. And that's been difficult. Teachers have really been expressing that to be something that they've struggled with. So they created, just to sort of address some social stuff with them, they addressed a birthday bunch club for ninth graders to sort of celebrate throughout the year ninth graders who are having birthdays. So there was so much more. Yashira talked quite a bit about the Positivity Project and the things that are going on that Micah just spoke about in regards to what they're doing in their building. And then, of course, we talked about food services and also, the health piece of COVID and how we're addressing that. So we had an agenda of what we wanted to talk about. We sort of went sideways, but had a really good conversation. And that's why I really do think it would be good if the guidance department specifically could perhaps create some presentation for the board, because I do think the community would like to hear more about what's being done. So it's quite possible that the children aren't sharing that so much with the parents, but it is happening. And I think it would be important for parents to hear that.
Yeah, and Faith, if I could I know we did, Michael's team did do a presentation to the board on SEL, but we'll revisit that.
That's all I have.
Thank you. The audit committee, as Denise said, we'll have to put the audit committee together soon when we hear back from Chris Melly as to when we should start and have our kickoff.
Well, do you want to do that early May? Because
let's wait and see what he comes back with.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Thank you. Facilities committee, I know that we're meeting again soon, correct, Dr. Sheboy?
Yeah, I don't have a date on it yet. I'll have to work with Marissa to figure out a date because everything with NISCUS and NAIF is coming up. It's hard to squeeze a day. But I know we want to revisit because we definitely, we're going to, hopefully the board will approve the pre-ref work for BCA and hopefully the board will approve reserve, but we will need to start, putting pencil to paper. Currently, anything the BCA has been doing for us been pro bono. At some point, they probably want to get paid. So,
Yes, and we will be, we have to approve the addition of the referendum by, because it has to get in the paper
Yeah, we want to get that approved next week. That's when we
next
approved it
week.
last
Okay.
time.
Right.
So that we could get it on, last year, we took it off, obviously, but that's when we
Yeah.
approved it last year was, I want to say
Okay.
the 12th.
Okay, so we'll do it next week. Okay. Okay, thank you. And then the next is our Diversity and Equity Committee. I mean, that thing is just rolling forward like unbelievable. So,
Yeah. And the next meeting is Tuesday. We haven't had
Yeah.
a meeting since our last update, I don't believe, right?
no, not since last week.
Right.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay, delegate to Oxba, NISBA. Faith, you touched on that?
that's me. Yeah, there were just a few other things that I wanted to
Yeah.
highlight from Regent Wills, because it was just, I honestly felt like I was in the presence of greatness. So it was pretty neat to have that presentation. I did hear all of hers, and I was part of the conversations that took place afterwards, but I did have to excuse myself from that meeting a little bit early due to a work issue. But first, Regent Wills really did spend some time voicing some appreciation, a lot of appreciation for the work that school boards do. So it was always nice to hear those words. We talked about the tug and pull. She did give a little bit of an update, as Andrea was talking about, in regards to the issue of testing. She sort of put out what we've already known and read about, didn't have a lot more answers, although of course folks were anxious to hear answers from her. And a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight that she did say was that the Regents exams that are being required and offered, from what she can understand is, and help me if I say this wrong, that the weight that's being put on those tests is not the same as it has been in the past, and that the outcome of those tests will not be a barrier to graduation. She said that a number of times, that the outcome of those tests will not be a barrier to graduation. And the sense that they were getting is that having all of the testing that they're requiring to have done is really more coming from, this is how she explained it, more coming from the idea of needing to have a sense of where our students are, what learning has happened over this past year, and that the idea is that may drive some support and funding moving forward, particularly as we were talking about the social emotional gap and the learning gaps in between. So I know there's a lot of people who get upset around the issue of testing, but they are really kind of focusing on the fact that the testing is important this year because it will sort of give a sense of where kids are based on, this whole pandemic thing. We talked a lot about statewide initiatives in relationship to promotion of equity, access, inclusion, and student voice, which we've talked about several times in our meetings. We talked about the Perspective Board training, which again, just a plug for that because Oxford does sponsor that. It's Saturday, March the 20th in the morning, or Tuesday evening on March 23rd. You would have to sign up. Marissa has the flyer information for that if folks are interested in attending. And Karen Meyer from Oxford did ask Regent Wills just to provide some insight that she could provide to prospective board members, if they're considering running for the board. And something that she said is so critically important for boards is to make sure that they are listening respectfully to others and what everyone at the table and in their community has to offer. So I thought that was a very important reminder for our board as we move forward. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Next is Mrs. Crowe for an athletics update.
Thanks for having me. Our winter season went off like a whirlwind. We probably had about 3.5 weeks. We completed our COVID testing 5 days a week. Every athlete and coach was negative throughout the entire season, which is quite an accomplishment. There were no other schools that are doing what we are doing for the safety of everyone involved. So I'm very appreciative to our administration for that. I think the athletes were excited to be able to participate. It was tiring. I can tell you that girls and boys basketball played 6 days in a row, which we thought we were in the NBA and the WNBA. And they were pretty sore when they had to go to football practice, some of them on Monday, but it was still worth it just to let them to be able to compete. Our fall 2 season started on Monday. Again, we started with COVID testing. We're doing football on Mondays and Wednesdays, and volleyball and cheerleading on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Again, these 4 days, everyone was negative, so that's another positive. We hope we can keep them safe and happy and well to play. I want to say many thanks to the administration, the business department, our grounds department, and our technology department for all that you did for winter sports. The live streaming aspect was wonderful. I know our families appreciated it. And I'd like to also thank Mr. Kinane and his tech crew. They were at the girls and boys games, announcing all the games, playing music, providing the thundering crowd noises, which some of the opposing coaches did not like. And I would say to you that Mr. Grant, Coach Grant, went down to the HFIS today and started our intramural program. And he's going to be doing that Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. He's going to do 2 weeks of basketball. It'll be co-ed, 2 weeks of volleyball, and then hopefully 2 weeks of indoor soccer, because I don't know that the fields are going to be ready to play. He did give out the paperwork to the children to bring home to their families and bring back updated health history forms will also be required for them to participate. But I think this is good for them to have something. I will share with you that many schools are dropping many levels. In the fall, we've lost a bunch of JV schools to soccer, modified as well. So we're hanging in there with what we have, but it's a tough time. Fields are not ready. Athletes aren't ready. We're hoping that we're going to be ready to open up next Friday night for football, but that's still unsure. I was talking today to someone and they're having a football meeting, and unfortunately with what happened in Walk Hill, they're only requiring 10 practices for football. And many of the coaches and chair people don't feel that that's enough time. So I have a feeling that maybe next Friday will be postponed, but I'll find out more and I'll let Dr. Sheboy and the board know.
And again, Deb, I go back to safety first.
Yes.
Safety first, absolutely. I'm not sure anything could have prevented what happened in Walk Hill.
No.
God rest his soul, but we'll always keep our students' safety first and utmost.
Mm-hmm.
That was a terrible, terrible thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I want to thank you and all your coaches for pulling that together so quick and keeping everybody safe. And I'm looking forward to the same for our fall 2 sports.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
And real quick, I just want to and Debbie, thank you for that report. Just a special shout out to our student athletes too, because, again, we put protocols and policies, procedures in place, and again, they followed them all. They did everything we asked them to do, and we had a successful season. 0 positive tests throughout a season is incredible. Probably unheard of, but thank you guys, and I hope we continue that hard work into the next season. We can continue right into graduation.
And I also have to thank the parents in our communities, because they were instrumental in making sure that all the paperwork was signed in person as the Board of Ed and Dr. Sheboy requested. They all came in. Your board meeting was that Thursday night, and Friday I had every single parent signed papers so that the boys could start and the girls had them as well. Oh, and I'm remiss. The cheerleaders were at every home game, girls and boys, and I thank them because it gave them an opportunity and experience, even though they couldn't compete. So I thank the cheerleaders as well.
And if I could just jump in, Debbie, Coach Crow, again, it's just an example of when people accept personal responsibilities, we can move forward. One party, one event out of school where there's a mass gathering or an unsafe social gathering, and we would not have been able to finish our season. Other school districts had shutdowns of 10 days, because any positive, you automatically shut down 10 days. So our students exhibited incredible restraint and incredible personal responsibility. Same with our coaches, our student athletes and their families. So just kudos.
And again, to any student athletes listening, please keep that momentum going, keep that responsibility.
Yeah,
And we're in the right direction. Thank you.
absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raiders.
Yes, yes. Federal government funding. We have our NAFIS conference the week after next. Or is it the week after next?
Week after next. Next week is meniscus.
Yeah, I can't piggyback enough on what Denise is saying. We have our work cut out for us. It's, one remote conference, 2 going on 3 remote conferences. It's difficult. We have to stay on touch. We have to attend every online meeting, every conversation. It's difficult at best when we're not there. So we will continue. We will continue to do our Hill visits remotely. Stay on top of things, answer any questions, respond to any surveys that we receive, which we have, and put our opinions out there, and we're going to do our best. The state funding advocacy is almost worse at this point. We'll continue to reach out to our state representatives. We're not, their hands are tied too. We're not getting a lot of support. We need to wait I think we still just need to wait it out and see if what's going to be changing for us in the near future, especially when it comes to the state budget for now. But we do not have a good feeling even about any future aid that we could be getting for the COVID relief, and whether there's really a plan to disperse that in an appropriate manner. But we're not giving up. We're continuing to meet with our elected officials, and we will continue to do so. Does that sound about right, Dr. Sheboy? Yep.
Sounds exactly what the plan is.
Yes. Local government liaison, Jim?
Not much to report other than the village is undergoing its budget process as well. As we go through each department, so far so good. And if there's any changes, I'll keep you guys up to date.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is the tax cert liaison, Denise.
And there's no update at this time.
Thank you. The West Point Community Council, we have finally a meeting coming, correct?
Yep, Wednesday.
This upcoming Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Right.
And
Okay.
it is in person, but if anybody, we do have remote means as well. So I know that
I saw that from
we're
Mickey.
trying to get to normalcy. Yeah, we're trying to get to normalcy, but it just takes a while, and it's on a Wednesday, so it's not gonna. We won't have strangers in the building when we have kids.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Our community engagement report.
Again, the principals are leading the way in that, but I'll just highlight a couple things that I've been at in the last few days or coming week. So this week I was fortunate to have been able to take part in the Town of Highlands Police Reform Committee organization meeting. I'm looking forward to being part of that as they just look at their policies and protocols on town policing. It seems like a great committee, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fruit of their efforts. Yesterday, I took part in the Community Coalition webinar, or I guess more like presentation and discussion on problem gambling. And it's an interesting problem. We talk about addictions in the context of substances typically, but there are many people who are preyed upon, and targeted almost by firms and agencies and organizations that would take their money through gambling. And again, I found it informative. I had not thought of that in the context of the work that the Community Coalition is doing. I know Michael attended a Community Coalition meeting yesterday, and I don't know if he's got anything on that, but before I let him speak on that, I'm also taking part in the West Point Insulation Review Board just to provide an update on what we're doing as far as a school district in the context of Army Garrison West Point. Mike, did you want to add anything about Community Coalition?
Yeah, we have a couple of our after-school programs, Student Council, Multicultural Club, and NJHS are going to team up with the Community Coalition, specifically with Amelina. They're going to help her putting together a presentation. Details to come, but we're excited to partner with them and get the students involved in the community.
Thanks, Mike.
That sounds exciting. That's great. Okay, Denise, can I turn it over to you, please?
Absolutely. Consent agenda. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools, number 2 to 19.
Motion.
I would like to
Second.
speak to number 9.
Hold on, please. Hold on, please, Ned. I have a motion by Gabe.
Second.
Okay, and Aaron is the second. Okay, go ahead. You'd like to keep number 9.
I was wrong with regard to my perception. That charge, there was a $5,000 surveying, but no, there is an amount. In my opinion, there should be some information so that we have an idea of how much the survey should be. And I reiterate that that the details of the survey should be available so that if there were firms that had the capacity, that they could interface with BCA, see whether or not local firms would be able to participate. In addition, the provisions of the contract have a liability limitation on part of BCA to the amount of their professional liability insurance, which is not spelled out, the amount, and in my opinion should not be limited, because we will find there was a liability suit being a party to that, and wind up having to pay money above the BCA limit. Additionally, imposes upon the district an indemnity obligation with regard to asbestos and hazardous materials. In my opinion, that should not be our responsibility. That should be the contractor who is providing those services. Additionally, it provides that the district will pay transportation expenses and flight, car, meals, and hotels, etc. I believe that those additional charges should be our responsibility.
Okay, we'll vote on number 9 separately. So if we can have a motion to remove number 9.
And
Yes.
could I just clarify one thing regarding the survey? It's the only thing I'm going to clarify. It does say at the bottom of the proposal, if any subcontractors are required, it's to a joint decision between the district and BCA as to whether we would want to have BCA do it or that we would retain them. So just that gives us the ability to, if we wanted to try to ascertain a subcontractor for survey if we needed one, which we don't know if we need it or not, that we would maintain that level of control. So just wanted to put that out.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Marissa, do I need a motion to withdraw
Yes.
number 9 and vote on it separately, or we can just do that?
I think we have to do the
A
former.
motion. Okay,
Motion.
may I please
I
get a
make
motion?
the motion.
Okay, Ned, motion, second. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, are there any other questions on any of the other items?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment on Mrs. Giannotis's retirement.
Yes.
I just want to say, I mean, I have a very, very special place in my heart for Mrs. Giannotis. She was my 4th grade teacher back when she was Miss Koutsaratis. And I will never forget her because her name, sorry, Gus, very difficult to pronounce, let alone spell, particularly when you're in the 4th grade. And I remember that every single spelling test that we had every single Friday, if we could spell her name correctly, we got bonus points. So I learned how to spell that real quick. And then fast forward to when my oldest was in 2nd grade and had her, 1st grade and had her, I made sure that all summer he prepared how to spell her new name, Giannotis. So I'm very sad to see her go. She was a very, very special part of my education process. So it's
And I think that's the case for everybody. So thank you for saying the nice words about, and we look forward to celebrating her retirement. So thank you. So any other questions?
And do we have to take another revote then on 9?
I'm going to do it on all of them. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do them all. We didn't do the vote yet on 2.
Okay.
And okay. So let us go now and vote on 2 through 8 and 10 through 18, right? 19?
19.
I'm trying to read her lips and I can't. 10 through 19. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then item number 9, ECA services. Or may I please get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Okay, I have a motion. Gabe, second. Aaron, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Okay, Ned. Anything else you need, Marissa?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next is executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual, to discuss matters made exempt under FERPA, federal law FERPA, and understand that the board will not return to open session to take action.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I thank everybody for joining tonight. And we got a lot done. So thanks, everybody, and stay well.
Good night.